Welcome back, MMA Oddsbreaker. Today we have the Barbarian, who's been on here with us before, Tim Boetsch, getting ready to fight Dan Henderson, June 6th in New Orleans. A buddy of mine hit me up for Henderson's after party. He's actually having it at Channing Tatum's Saints and Sinners down in New Orleans. Do you already have? You don't seem like an after party guy. You don't seem like a guy that goes out and has after parties after you fight. You tend to hang out with Marcus and go, drink some beer and sit in the corner, right?
Yeah, I lay pretty low. I just like to enjoy the time with my friends and family that are there, and obviously Marcus and the people that helped, with training camp, and we keep it pretty low key. And like you said, I'm not a huge after party kind of guy.
New Orleans is like, and forgive me, people in New Orleans, you're going to be upset at me at this, but to me, it's kind of like Las Vegas's dirty stepsister. It kind of smells weird. Like Vegas smells weird too. It's got a bunch of casinos. You can kind of drink all night. It's kind of a party town, but it's kind of small, has a lot of history into it. But to me, it's kind of like a weird spot. I like historic stuff. So I'm able to leave the quarter and I go out and I hang out and go to the Flower District and go look at all the old cemeteries. And when I'm there, I have a good time. Do you think you're going to have a good time when you're there, when you're not having to concentrate on the fight, when you're trying to relax?
I think so. From what I understand, the food is very good there, and I'm very much into eating all kinds of food and trying new stuff. And Monty was sure to tell me to make sure I stay a couple days extra because the food is that good that I'll definitely want to stay around and check that out. So that's my plan. I'm staying 3 days after the fight.
And Monty's right. You can't eat the food when you're trying to make weight. It's southern deep fried food. We all know about Daniel Cormier. He's from Louisiana. We see his body type. That's Southern cooking. That's what that does to you.
Yeah, so I don't like any of that before the fight.
Yeah, no way. You would make weight. There'd be no way for you to pull it off. You guys have been shifted. You were at co-main event. You and Henderson were co-main event. You get moved up to main event because of the John Jones scandal. So where he gets removed and released and he's out of the UFC, then Cormier comes in and he has to get moved over to fight Anthony Johnson, which is during this, the time of this interview, it's this weekend that they're fighting. And it moves you from co-main to main. Co-main to main doesn't really put any different kind of stress on you, does it? From being the fight before the last to being the last fight?
The only difference is the additional rounds. Being in the main event, you're now talking a 5-round fight versus a 3-round fight. So that's the only thing we had to take into consideration was bumping up the conditioning a little bit and just preparing mentally to potentially have to go into those later rounds. But
you're fighting an old man. Henderson's like 127 years old. The 2 extra rounds, that's when he'll fall apart, right? Isn't that the game plan, is have him crack in the 4th and 5th round?
It should, if it goes into the later rounds, it should favor the younger man. But I don't honestly see it getting to that point. I don't think this fight's going to go into the 4th and 5th round. And I'm anticipating Dan coming out looking to take my head off early, and I'm going to be doing the same. So I think it's going to be an early finish in, the first 3 rounds for sure.
You saw his fight with Gegard Mousasi, Henderson's fight. Did you think they were stopped a little bit too early, or do you think Dan still had some left in him, or do you think it was a good stoppage?
Well, I know Dan. I've been watching him for a long, long time, just like everybody else. So for me, I felt like it was an early stoppage. There's been so many fights where he's been clipped, he's been hurt, he's been knocked down, and he battles back through and ends up winning. So when you're dealing with a guy who can come back and bounces back quickly, you got to give him the opportunity to do that. So I do think that was a quick stoppage.
Yeah, I believe so as well, and everyone knows my history with Dan, so I'm a little biased in that mindset. But like you, he gets beat up and he comes back, so he's not a guy that's going to go down right away. But it was an unfair stoppage. I'm not going to say that it was unfair or that he should contest or anything like that. I'm just saying that for Henderson, knowing Henderson the way that we know Henderson, watching him fight for all those years, he could have come back from it. With that being said, you clip him, let's just say best case scenario, middle of the 2nd round, you smash him, he falls down, but the ref isn't really jumping in, he's not really making that step forward to kind of stop the fight. He's giving Dan the benefit of the doubt. What is going through your mind next? What are you going to try to do next? If I've already dropped him now, but the ref's not stopping it, where do you go now?
Well, I know I've watched enough of his footage, and I've been following. I'm a huge Dan Henderson fan, so let's start there. So I've been watching him for a long time, but especially now that I know I'm going to be fighting him, I know I can't give him an opportunity to recover because he does recover very well. So if I were to knock him down, the next thing I have to do is look for another clean shot to try to put him away, because if you kind of fall on top of him and smother him, there's a chance he's going to hang on to you and get his wits about him. And then before you know it, you're going to be fighting the guy you started fighting at the beginning of the round. So he's very tough. You got to pick the right shots and make sure you hit him clean.
I interviewed Cormier before his Anthony Johnson fight, and he's very respectful of Anthony Johnson. He looks up to him. He's like, if I wasn't fighting him, I'd actually be cheering for him. He's a guy that I like to cheer for. Is that kind of what Henderson is to you, that if you weren't fighting him, you'd actually be cheering for him the entire time as well?
Absolutely. Dan's one of the guys that if he's on a card, I was definitely watching it. He's just entertaining. He's always been. He's always been a guy for me that I looked up to, coming from the wrestling background and all the accolades the guy has. I don't know any fighter who doesn't look up to Dan Henderson, and if they don't, they're crazy, because he's done everything young fighters would want to do.
If a fighter doesn't look up to Dan Henderson, he's one of those guys. If you're not looking up to him as a competitor in any sport, specifically as a fighter, you're either too young and don't remember what he's done, don't know what he's done, or like you said, you were just completely idiotic. Like you just don't understand how the game is really fought. Yeah. What does Tim Boetsch, the Barbarian, have to do to be that next generation of Dan Henderson, to be the guy that guys, in 5-6 years from now are like, man, I can't believe I'm fighting Tim. If it wasn't for me fighting Tim, I'd be cheering for him. Like, how do you get to Dan Henderson's space?
I think it's just carrying yourself, and being that tough guy. And I feel like because of what Dan has done and how much I do look up to him, I've tried to mirror myself to his style, and I think we have a lot in common. Obviously, he's achieved more in the fight game than I have, but certainly I've got a lot of time left to try to get to that level. But, you just got to work hard. He's one of those guys, works hard, even though when they might not be doing a pre-fight show on him every time, but he's working hard for every fight. And just, he's beat everybody. He finished Fedor, one of the greatest fighters of all time. And, Dan Henderson certainly is one of the best fighters of all time.
Yeah, he really is he's definitely going to be a future Hall of Famer, because especially with UFC having purchased the Pride library and brought all the Pride fighters over, Dan was a dual weight class champ over there, and almost did it in the UFC as well. It's just one of those guys like him and Couture. Of course, I have a wrestling background, and I've known these guys for, Randy, I've known him for almost 25 years. It's one of those situations you look at him and you're like, wow, these guys are standing the test of time and can be this guy that kind of gets into that space. Yeah. Do you put any added pressure on yourself sometimes to go, I want to be like that. I want to be that guy that all the new guys look up to, that everybody wants to kind of be like as they're coming through? Tough, exciting, never giving up, always improving. Do you put added pressure on yourself for that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the legacy that I want to leave. I want people to talk about how tough I was when my career's over, and talk about the fights that I was in, and talk about the fact that whenever I was in there, the potential for an exciting fight or a highlight reel type fight was always going on. And those are the types of things I want to be involved in. And I know this fight coming up is going to be the same. I'm sure Dan has that in the back of his mind. He knows it's going to be a good fight. I think he knows that me as an opponent makes for a good fight, makes for an exciting fight. And he's the type of fighter that's going to come out there and put it on the line, and it's going to be a great show for the fans.
Potentially fight of the night, potentially knockout of the night bonuses for either one of you guys. I mean, seriously, it's one of those fights. What are you going to do with that money if you win fight of the night and or knockout of the night? What are you going to do with that extra cash?
My whole goal is to get my house paid off with my fight money, so double bonus would certainly help to do that. And I'm sure I'll find something to do that's a little more fun than making a house payment, but that's what's the main thing on my mind with my fight
money. No new
money.
toys, not a new snowmobile, not going to go out and try and get a new four-wheeler, not a new hunting rifle, nothing, just paying off the house and maybe some family time.
I try to always buy a new gun after every fight, so that's definitely me. Without
I don't want to know numbers, because that's not for us to know. But was your original mortgage a 30-year mortgage? Was that your original mortgage on the house?
Yep.
And you've been trying to pay it off. You've been steadily paying it off. Are you still at on track for the loan to lay out for 30 years? Or with this payment, you could pay the whole house off if you win a Friday night bonus. The house is done.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it paid off in the next 2 years. So if I want to go out, if I want to extend myself, I could pay it off but you know, I want to have a little bit to fall back on if things get weird in the future.
You know, and that's one of the things we never really talk about. Right? We always talk about a little bit about what do you do in the future? What's the next step for you? But no one talks about, hey, right now, what are you doing with your money? And there is a thing that we both know because we've been there. You could legitimately have this fight, and that could be it. And they might never call you again. Not that you got hurt or you did something bad. They might never call you again. You just might be accelerated out of your contract. You're like, well, what do I do now? Well, you're 24 months away from paying off your house. So that's a huge deal to be able to provide with your family. What other things are you doing with your money just in case, that nest egg, just in case there's that lean time maybe in between careers, in between being a professional fighter and moving on to the next step where you're like, okay, this is what I'm putting aside for that 6-8 months where I'm not sure what I'm going to do next?
Well, I like to make sure that I'm set up in my other businesses, my lawn care and landscaping, and my wife has a photo booth business. She does events and stuff, so we put money into those things, and you know, have some small investments. You know, obviously not the retirement plan that I hope to have yet, but you know, the next couple of fights, hopefully I can put that together and be sitting comfortably when I'm nearing the end of my career.
When you're not in training camp, you're running your landscaping business full time. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
So what's your training schedule like then when you're not in training camp? Because you know it's not like there's only so many hours a day you can mow a lawn, so many hours a day you can trim hedges. It's just like it takes a lot of time. You have to do it dang late hours, and then you still have to get your training time in.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to balance, and especially in the summertime when it gets real busy. You know, I need to be able to call on some people to help, you know, lighten the workload if I can. And I'm fortunate that I have people in my family that are able to do that. But it's a balancing act, you know, being a business owner and a fighter, full-time fighter at this level. It is definitely a balancing act.
Tim, thanks so much for coming on here with MMAOddsBreaker. I appreciate it. It's always great to talk to you. June 6th, Smoothie King Center, New Orleans, Louisiana. If you're in Louisiana, you need to go see this fight live. It's UFC Fight Night, so it'll be on Fox Sports. Dan Henderson, Tim Boetsch, a main event, well worthy of it. And I'm telling you, I've looked at this fight card, and if it's going to be fight of the night, it's going to be knockout of the night. One of you guys is going to definitely step this game up, and it's going to be an epic battle. For me personally, because I like you both, I want to see both guys come out undamaged and have it be a 5-round war, but no one's cut up and no one's beat up, but the fans just love it, and it gets fight of the night bonus. That's what I want to see happen.
Well, that sounds good to me. Let's see how it all plays out.
Thanks, Tim, so much, and do me a favor, kick Marcus in the nuts for me.
All right, will do.